Welcome to Inspired Living with Keri Murphy, the podcast, where as your host each and every week, I am going to inspire you and empower you to share your message and step into that big vision you see for yourself. I'll be bringing you celebrity interviews, influencer insights, and my personal tips from decades as an on-camera talent, TV host, media expert, and entrepreneur, so you can build a brilliant seven-figure brand. Because when you're inspired, you inspire others. So let's go. Imagine for just a moment having the responsibility to carry on your family's legacy, the lineage of thousands of years of Eastern medicine and principles. How would you feel about that? Do you feel like you have a choice, or would it be this huge responsibility? In this Inspired Living interview with Dr. Jenelle Kim, I have to tell you, I was inspired to listen to her story and what she has learned. She is the first female in her lineage to hold the treasury of her family's proprietary bee bong formulas that have been passed down for centuries, starting actually at 1539. We talk about these principles in this interview. She also shares her book coming out that is called Living Meditation, which I find so fascinating. Many of us know what meditation is. But what is living meditation? She talks about the three core foundations of medicine, meditation, and movement, and how at an early age, she was so interested in medicine. And in fact, her and her husband own JBK Wellness Labs that really brings holistic Eastern medicine in line with Western philosophies. So again, I was so inspired by this interview. I hope you are as well. I'm excited to keep learning and to get her book. So get ready for some really amazing heart-opening conversation and principles around living meditation. Dr. Jenelle, I have to tell you, like doing my research and reading up on you, and I have to say I did a little bit of video stalking as well. What an impressive background you have, your expertise when it comes to Chinese medicine and meditation and practicing meditation, like all of those things. You have product lines. And I'll tell you what, I'm always really fascinated at East meets West. I think and you talk so much about them kind of coming together.
Yes.
Which I really want to deep dive, because in the industry that I am in, we all want to look young. We want to feel good, right? Inspired living. We want to be good. And I feel like there are ways to do that we're really just growing up in the Western world, just not really privy to or take time to understand. So I'm excited to learn on this episode with you. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I love these topics. So I'm so excited.
All right. So I'm going to just jump on in here. You know, growing up, I got to choose what I wanted to do many times. The road kept changing for me. But Jenelle, you were kind of given this, I don't even know what to call it, like this legacy, this plight to move forward from your family, being the only woman left to carry on the trainings and the philosophies and the things that your dad brought from Asia. Am I saying this right?
Yes,
I don't want to mess it all up.
No, that's exactly right. A lineage,
right? So I want to know, was that something that you were excited about? Because one of the things I heard you say is I had to grow up really fast, and you feel like you were kind of given this pretty hefty job to go out there and educate and inspire and empower people around what it is that your family lineage has practiced and known for centuries.
Right.
What was that like for you? And when did you kind of go, okay, it's on me now?
Absolutely. No, I really appreciate that question, Keri. And it's something that's really important to me in some way, shape, or form, no matter whether I'm on a stage in front of thousands or simply ready to do a project. I always start with this intention first. This is what inspires me, right? Yeah. And so the beautiful part is, which I didn't always look at it as beautiful necessarily, or I didn't even really think about it in all honesty, but I always had the choice. That's the incredible part. That's why I really appreciate you bringing this up, because that's something that has certainly been passed down in my lineage. So yes, I come from a long lineage of doctors and herbologists. I come from a long lineage of philosophers or scholars, if you will, of the Tao, of the Eastern philosophy. But to me, it's the human philosophy, right? I say I was kind of born, I know I was born into this earth to be an example. I am East and West. My father was Korean, my mother's American. To this day, honestly, that's still not the norm, right? Isn't that a funny thing? A time where so much is integrating, very much coming from this long lineage it's old and new. And so all of these things have, in fact, I was born on this earth to, in some way, shape, or form, exemplify that. We all are put here for some reason and purpose, and it's our choice at the end of the day to decide what we want to do with that. And it has always been a choice of mine. One thing I'm grateful for, looking back now, my father, my mentor, similar to in my book, I have a book coming out soon that kind of goes into my father and his mentor or his master, his teacher. Mm-hmm. And you'll see there too, it was his choice too, and so on and so on. And that's something I really connect to, Keri. And I have to say, probably if I had to put in one word, it's that feeling of connectedness to something, purpose, whatever word resonates with you as an individual, right? But for me, I can, when I look back, I feel like I always did connect with that, but that does not mean that growing up, I knew that this is what I was going to do. That's the beautiful part. My mentor, my father, never pushed me to do this. I was raised a certain way for sure. These principles were part of my life, just as they've been handed down for generations, for centuries, for all human beings, not just Asian or the East, but for all of us. And so it was not until kind of fast forward until I was about 19 years old, did I realize, and it really had to do, I talk about my 3 pillars, right? Mm-hmm. Medicine, meditation, and movement. And that's kind of what everything can fall into.
Meditation, medicine, and movement.
Yes. Of course, I speak on living meditation, but I'm sure we'll go into that. Yes. But at the age of 19, the first thing that really hit me was the medicine aspect. There are a couple of things at that young adult age that I started seeing. I know I'm now recognizing that we're able to balance, if you will, certain conditions that at home and people that surround us and my family or extended family or friends. And I saw how much the Eastern medicine could really help to rebalance certain conditions that a lot of people were so amazed by, something I had grown up with. So again, long story short, that was the first pillar, if you will, that really I felt a connection with, and I changed my life very quickly. So in the entrepreneurial.
So at 19, Jenelle, did you see something that was going on? Did someone in your family have cancer, or was there a diagnosis where you said, there's got to be a different way?
I saw.
Or was it just like, I'm going to start studying the medicine behind herbology and all of those things?
You're exactly right. I think it was a few different moments in life, and probably then it kind of reminds you of everything else you've seen. So certainly I saw certain people walking through cancer in different ways. You can help to rebalance the body during that, make yourself at the very least more comfortable, right? From a toothache to certain emotional imbalances. I mean, the whole thing, it just for some reason hit me then. And that was a moment in my life as a person, as an entrepreneur, whatever, it fits in so many different ways where it kind of hit me like a light bulb. It really was like that. You hear that, and that happened to me.
It really does happen. Yeah.
Yes. And I was always taught, and I love this, and I teach this to my boys, and I love sharing this as I speak. We're all given certain opportunities in this life, certain doors of opportunity, and they can come by and we might not even notice it. So it's so important to be aware of our own selves and aware of the connection to nature and the universe around us and our opportunities. Because like I just said, it can show up and you might not even know. And I'm so grateful that in that moment, for whatever reason, I was aware enough to realize there's something here. Mm-hmm. And I took a very quick shift in my college, everything. I went to a great, private college, Pomona Pitzer. They're in Southern California. So I grew up very academic. And 2 years in, I thought, you know what? No, now's the time. I just felt it, Keri, and I trusted it. I have a lot of faith in the universe and that feeling. And
gosh, what it would be like if we all trusted that? Like when we have that download, right? When we are aware of what's happening around us and we actually pay attention and then take action. I wonder, Jenelle, like how different people's lives would be, how much happier they would be if they just followed that guide, that feeling, but you did. And I want to go back to something really quick that I think is important is that even though you knew like you were the last to carry on this lineage and that it was really on you, right? You said, you know what? I always knew I had the choice. And I think that for all of us, whether you come from a family of doctors or attorneys or like me, hairdressers, stylists, like you get to choose. My mom owns a salon. My 2 sisters do hair. And I was like, you know what? That's not for me. I'm going to go do something else. And so for you to own it and say, you know what? I choose this probably gives you a different level of inspiration and excitement instead of, oh my gosh, it's a must or I have to do this. And we can do that with every single thing in our life, right? I get to whether instead of I have to.
Absolutely. And we should, truthfully, that to me is one of the overall fundamental principles of the Tao, the universe and everything, right? Is that at the end of the day, we always hold the choice. And it
Mm-hmm.
can be a little bit scary for a lot of people, but also
Yeah.
I look at it as it is so empowering. It's
Yeah.
so important to understand that and know that no matter what's happening around us. And that's exactly what that second pillar, that meditation, to me, that's living meditation. That's the philosophy. That's the lifestyle. That's
So
the
let's talk about that. And this is the premise. This is
Mhm.
kind of what your book
Yes,
is
that's
about
right.
coming out.
That's exactly right, Keri. And so
Yeah.
this didn't come.
Are
I've
you
been working on
excited, by the
this.
way?
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And I also take it really seriously.
Sure.
Anyone who gets to know me, and I think I can, because it's different for me, kind of even going back to what you first mentioned, this is something that, yes, I do look at it that way. This has been handed down for centuries, and I'm excited about it. I'm passionate about it on a whole other level, because this isn't just my words, right, Keri? This isn't my thoughts. I hope to share some of my experiences so it resonates that much more. But this is something that has existed for so long. And for some reason, I don't know exactly what that reason is, but I know it exists right now. I have the opportunity to be able to share it in a way, East and West, old and new. If I walked in and I was a 60-year-old Asian man with a long beard, I've heard that before in the medicine world as well, right? When I'm an expert in beauty and wellness and Eastern medicine, they say, Jenelle,
if you're not watching this video, she does not look that way.
Right? But I think that's all part of it.
Say.
Yes, Keri. And
gorgeous lady. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Keri. My goodness, the feeling is mutual. But I think that's all part of it, especially in this moment in time. So yes, I'm very excited to share these principles. I have seen in my lifetime them help so many, including myself, during very challenging times, during times of happiness, during times of sadness, you name it. And it's all about very much kind of that living meditation. How do we go through life connecting the way that you and I have already been talking about a bit, being inspired, what drives us? How do we empower ourselves? Always remembering that no matter what, we have the choice, and to be aware of that. So
I'll tell you what, Jenelle, when you realize that you always have the choice, right, to live from that place of empowered,
yes.
it's a different way of being.
Yes.
And I really want everyone to feel that way. And that's why I was so excited to have you on the show, because we can forget that sometimes. We can feel like we're handed a pile of stuff that we have to try to maneuver when we still get choice. So can we talk about the book a little bit and living meditation? Now, I'm very aware of what meditation is. I actually did a little practice this morning.
Good.
My life is always so much better when I take time to meditate. And I would like to say I do it daily. I'm going to set that intention, Jenelle.
Yes.
But give us some of the principles in the book. Give us a little bit about what we can expect.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, you just opened it beautifully. Living meditation means we can do it at every single minute. It's a little bit different than what we think, just like you said. And that's why I even called it this, is because exactly what you just said, Keri, I feel myself.
Right.
And I look around
and we kind of shame ourselves. At least I do. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing all the things, my practice. Yeah.
Exactly. It's because we care. And I'm very aware of that with you and with everyone who this resonates with, that it is good. I'm a strong proponent of having meditation practice, having different internal practices to really help to rebalance ourselves, become aware, all of the things that we wish for meditation. But why stop there? The sages, my ancestors, all of those who came before us, who truly dedicated their lives to this understanding of the universe, how we relate to it, how we understand our own selves, because it all has to start from within. It doesn't just stop when you sit down to meditate. It doesn't just stop when we're able to do yoga. Why can't we bring that into our life every moment? And it can sound overwhelming at first, but they're little habits, just like we learn
Give me
to walk
some
and breathe. Yes. So I say that there's 8 keys. I broke down the book this way, right? So key 1, for example, is
you might want to stop and get something to write with, or just or pause or come back later, because I have a feeling these are going to be really good. Or just get the book.
And they're on my website, so do not worry. I look at it daily. So I won't go through all of them necessarily, but some important ones. And the most important is key 1, knowing yourself. That's exactly what we're talking about, Keri. Now that's a lifelong, never, as far as in my humble understanding, will we ever say, you know what, Keri, I got it. I did it. I know myself. Like I've achieved it, but starting with yourself first, realizing, checking yourself. It's a purification from the inside, right? So it's just like we organize our surroundings. We have to sometimes stop and remember we have to be aware and check ourselves inside. And so everything starts with that. So no matter what we're doing, whether we're as a business owner with our team, whether it's parenting, whether it's being a daughter, a wife, a friend, to always take a moment and look at the entire situation, which leads to key number 2. And I believe that this one resonated with you, Keri, and of course it resonates with me. It's called the true, right, and correct method.
Yes.
And that is basically exactly what I'm saying. This to me is kind of at the center of living meditation. It's a practice, if you will. It's creating a good habit. And true, long story short, true refers to how we feel, yourself. You have to start there, right? So how do I feel about a certain situation? The right is basically, you can look at the good for everybody. So it's taking yourself out, zooming out for a second, changing your perspective. I am a huge proponent of that.
It's like that 30,000 foot view,
yes,
right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The book I didn't even say, it's called Myeongsang, the Korean art of living meditation. It's art. It is an art and a practice. And so every moment you go through, you look at that. What is true to me right now? What am I feeling? Right? Let me zoom out for a second, put myself in other people's shoes. What do I know? What am I aware of in that moment that would benefit? What do they want? What does that other person want? What's going to balance with everything around me? And then those two things together, you come to, or it equals almost like an equation, the correct choice. So by understanding where you stand, putting yourself in other people's shoes, zooming out, getting a greater perspective, you can see a situation that much more clearly.
So when you say the word right, it's funny. What comes up is like, well, that's subjective, right? What's right for me, it might not be what's right for someone else.
Yes.
So are we thinking like moral justice, like what is right from that sense?
Yes. Yes, 100%. You said it beautifully, Keri. I appreciate that. And so on first thought, if you were to just see that on paper, I think we'd all agree, well, yes, of course, the right is always the right thing to do, but it doesn't always work that way.
Right.
You know, we see that happen a lot. I know now I say it too. Now I'm just aware. This is awareness, right? Right.
Right. Exactly.
But yes. When you start to look at it that way, it just changes your perspective on everything that you do. It doesn't mean we don't have moments where we might fall off or do something that we don't love, but we can be aware enough that we can pull ourselves back and center, because everything comes from within. Everything comes from within ourselves. And that is, like I said before, so powerful. It can also sometimes be a little daunting, but when you start to practice that, the strength that gives you, the peace that gives you, knowing that you can't avoid anything. Things are going to happen, as we all just saw in a whole other way in the last almost 2 years now, right?
Boy, did we.
Yeah. Yes. And so what a beautiful time to acknowledge.
Absolutely. And you said something that I want to go back to, which was looking at true, like how do I feel in this moment? And one of the things that I've learned with working with different intuitive mentors and spiritual guides is what you're feeling isn't always a direct result of what's happening at the moment. It could be something that has happened in your childhood or something that triggered something in your past or, you know, and when you realize that, because I'll stop myself sometimes and I'll be like, why am I so frustrated? Why am I so angry? Why does this bother me so much? It's not the person and it's not the event. It triggered something that happened in my past. And when I know that, then when you go, what's correct, right? What's the equation? Then you go, oh, okay, like this makes total sense. So true, right, correct.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Okay. It's a very mindful and aware way of living that you can utilize. It doesn't have to take so long. Maybe it takes you already do it, Keri. You know, I believe anyone who truly does really focus on that awareness, that mindfulness, knowing that we are in the moment, that we do have the choice, we do have the power to decide which way we want to go in life. What path do we choose? It's so very important. It really is.
It is. And yet I'll tell you, it's not always that easy.
No,
you know, even when you know better, you know, it's one of those things too. Again, I love it. The living meditation of being mindful about those things.
Absolutely. And it becomes easier. It really does. Right. Because it becomes a habit. Again, it doesn't mean that you never fall off, but once it becomes that habit, you find yourself doing it that much more often, checking in for a moment, being aware, practicing that. And then honestly, it feels good when you do that. Let's just call it what it is. It feels empowering. It feels good. You start to see that you're able to balance situations around you because it's all about balance. That's truly,
again, it goes back to choice as well.
Always you have a choice.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And then another key that for certain resonates with me, I think of all the time, again, in work, in parenting, in relationships, would be key 8, which is the last chapter of the book. And it's called Be Like Bamboo. And it's one of my favorite visuals to have. And I actually thought of what does this mean to me? And that's how this phrase kind of came about. It's about being rooted. Same thing. You know, as we practice these things, empower ourselves, it's not as easy to be uplifted by all the things that are happening around us. Emotions, you know, challenging times, whether it be from external, whether it come from internal. So we have to be grounded first. And then it's the idea of going with the flow, right? Going with the Tao. I'm all about that. But sometimes I think we have to remember to first stay rooted, you know, because if we just kind of always go with the flow, but we don't have intention, we don't have awareness, we aren't grounded, it's very easy that all of a sudden now you're being twisted and taken with all the winds of life. And that's not healthy either, right? And so if you're bamboo, you're rooted, If a storm comes, you have the flexibility. That's the most important thing in life, I believe. I really do. Being grounded and having flexibility in the way that we think. Again, it goes back to that greater perspective, putting yourself in other people's shoes, looking at a situation, that zooming out a bit. And when you have that flexibility, it's much harder to break.
Yes.
It's a very strong place to stand, right?
I really love that analogy. Be like bamboo. And it makes total sense. You know, one of the things that I've talked to my clients so much about during these times is being agile and being willing to shift and move, but still be grounded in your core values and who you are and what you stand for and what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. So I now have a new metaphor for that.
I'm so happy.
Be like bamboo.
Yes.
And it makes total sense, because I'll tell you what, whether it's a pandemic or anything else, there are things in this life that shake us, whether it's a family member or yourself that has fallen ill. It can be business. It can be relationships, as we know. And when you are grounded in, I would love that you said, of knowing yourself and then going through the true, right, correct method.
Yes.
And understanding that if you can go a little bit, I don't think that means turn your back or neglect, but to be fluid through times.
Yes.
I also think it makes it easier to go through them.
That's almost necessary. I would go so far at this point in my life, having walked through certain challenges and also walking through beautiful moments. It is very important to be able to have that. And to, it's the understanding of never too up, never too down, never too happy, never too sad, never too hard, never too soft. And that's a very Tao yin and yang, which can relate to everyone, regardless of our beliefs and how we feel. That's just kind of a principle, just like there's day and night, masculine and feminine energies. It's so important to be able to feel that balance. And that to me is a way of expressing or defining what being aware of yourself is. Because we say all these things, but sometimes I find it really helpful to stop and think about what is it that I'm saying. Okay, yes, I do wish to be balanced, but what is the balanced thing to do right now? What is the proper balance to either I have to move forward very hard, which happens sometimes. Sometimes you have to, especially in business, especially being a woman, especially starting young, there's a moment that you have to step forward. Right. But then there's also moments where, especially being a woman, all the things I just said, being young, being an entrepreneur, for example, then there's also a lot of strength in being able to sit back and be flexible. And that happens in every
really resonate with that.
Yes. Yeah. I do as well.
Beautifully said. Yeah. Beautifully said. How do you teach your boys these principles? Are you practicing them with them now? Because they're at such great ages. Man, if we knew this when we were young.
This is the truth, Keri. And who knows, maybe I think sometimes, okay, the next book will be for the kids, the next generation, which is also part of the book. What are we doing right now? How are we moving about that? Of course, it makes sure that we are living a balanced, purposeful, fulfilling life for ourselves, for our peers, but also for the generations to come. It's really important. It makes you think different, right? And so, yes, I already incorporate these things all the time in my boys' lives. I have 2 young boys, 4 and 8. Again, I'm never going to stand here and say, every day is just perfect, Keri. Right before I jumped on here, they're at home and I told them to sit down and read and they sat down. And that's not helpful. That's not my point. But yes, it's always that. And I communicate with them a lot. The same things that I'm thinking, I communicate that all the time with them. They're with me in all of this, and it's about one thing that I certainly was raised this way. And I wish to always continue to raise my boys this way, or any child, if you will. It's amazing how pure they are and how much they absorb and how much if we communicate with them.
Especially at those ages.
Yes. How much if we communicate with them, they get it.
Yeah.
So in short, we can maybe have a whole other podcast on this. One of the things I do, I'm always communicating with them. This is what mommy's doing right now. Right now, mommy has to sit with you before you go to bed. And we're going to cuddle because it's also my favorite moment of the entire day. One of my favorite moments. But I'm going to have to sit here with my computer right now. And I'll share with them the articles that I'm writing. I'll share with them why I'm doing this right now. And they're part of it with me. And so, it also helps with, I hear often with moms who work, the mom guilt.
I was just going to say, that's just so great because they understand. You're not saying, honey, I have to work right now. Leave me alone. Like you're showing them, honey, look at the article I'm writing. Look at the video I'm creating right now. Look at what I'm working on.
Yes, because in this life, I always tell them what is the most important thing. Yes, I expect you to get good grades. I expect you to be, to follow certain guidelines and listen to the people who are older than you and behave. But the most important thing is to be kind. The most important thing is to put yourself in other people's shoes. Why is your brother feeling like that right now? And it takes a moment. And I was raised that way. When I was young, I rarely ever got grounded. For the most part, I will say I think I was a pretty good girl because I loved making, that's just part of who I was. I loved making my parents happy.
Yeah.
It's one of my things. Doesn't mean I never did anything bad, but that was important to me. But whenever I got corrected, right, or I don't even want to say in trouble, my father always took the time to explain to me. When I was young, I didn't understand. Like, can you just ground me? I would never say that.
I grew up in an Asian. But I will tell you, Jenelle,
yes,
parents that do that, like my little sister and her husband, when their children were growing up and they would get in trouble, they would sit down with them and explain to them why, not just you're grounded or you don't get this anymore, but to really help them understand and process, like, this is why you're getting in trouble right now. Right.
Yes.
Can you understand this? Because this,
or these are your options. Here's the thing. We talk about choice.
More options.
We have to, from the time that they can understand, I've always given them that choice. You have a choice right now. What do you want to do? It can be super simple. You can keep behaving this way. And the little time that we have right now together, we can spend it where mommy has to sit here and keep yelling and raising my voice or telling you to stop doing something. Or what do you wish to do right now? Let's understand this. Let's work this out together. Do you want your day to look like this or this? It's an amazing thing choice. And we can start it even when they're young. These are your choices right now. Which do you choose? Okay,
I'm going to start practicing that with my 6-year-old.
It's a funny
I really
thing.
Like it because I'll tell you, she is a strong-willed little human.
Especially when they're
okay, here are your choices.
Yes,
I like it. I like that a lot. And again, it gives them and empowers them, right, to make a decision for themselves
from an early age.
Hey, Jenelle, one of the things that I've really loved that you've said throughout this interview is when you refer to your dad, you refer to him as your mentor.
Yes.
And that just hits me for some reason. Growing up, I loved my parents very much, but I wouldn't say I had mentors until I was much older in my life. And now can't ever imagine myself not having one.
Yes.
What has mentorship meant to you? How do you now that your dad has passed,
right,
who do you turn to for mentorship? And for someone who's like in this place in their life where they see something bright and shiny and they know that they have something great to share with the world,
right?
Would you encourage them, and how would you encourage them to go out and get mentors?
I love that question. And that is actually a very, in East Asia, finding a mentor or a teacher is something really important.
Yeah.
And I do actually very much resonate with that in our new world where there is so much. I love that you say it that way, because that's true. So how do you decipher? I'm always open. I'm always open to hear what people have to share. And I'm inspired very often, and I admire so many people. But I will say that I very much look to the root. Where did this come from? Where did you learn these things? It matters to some extent,
Yeah, for sure.
Something that takes the test of time, that opens up to all human beings and doesn't start to become too selective, if you will. It's important to have that. And so, yes, it's been an interesting path for myself personally, which I hope sheds light on this process. Meaning, I know how fortunate I am. I cannot tell you every minute how grateful I am that I had a mentor who happened to be my father. He was my everything, and I did not always have all the time in the world to spend with him. I did because I just always knew, Keri, I would lose him one day. I don't know how else to say it. I just always knew it deep down. And so I spent so much time with him. And if it wasn't for him passing that soon, I don't know if the book would be out right now. There's so many things that inspired. And that's actually something that I sat and wrote, and it wasn't the easiest process of now you aren't here. And what I came to realize, which I want to share with so many people, because I know not everyone has a mentor, not everyone has a father or a mother in that way. And I know how grateful I am for that and how important that is and what I wish to share. But when he physically left this world, what he did is he shared these principles, not just to me. He also dedicated his life to making sure, to the best of his ability, he could share them with as many as possible, because he too had the opportunity that they came into his life. And what do you do with that? That is another choice. Same first question you asked me, and I don't even know if I answered it exactly, but I did have a choice, and I choose it because it resonates with me. I connect with it. Here are these principles, this medicine, this movement has landed in my life. What am I going to do with that? How can I not share that? And you're right, that deep feeling of that purpose, that connection, that wish to share. How can I not? And people used to say, gosh, you put the world on your shoulders. And I used to be like, oh, no, I don't. You know what? The answer is yes, I do. And I choose to do it that way. And that's what I wish. That's what makes me happy. But my father, I was so lucky to have those moments with him. And they were very condensed moments, if you will. And then it's true. Then I lost him one day. And I felt that. I don't even think I had time to really sit down and feel it, because light kept moving and we had to function and grow. But then I realized, what a beautiful thing. Whether we have a teacher that's that close to us, even if we haven't found a teacher, these principles exist all around us. Every answer we need, is found inside of us and in the universe around us. It's a really interesting thing. So whether we have a teacher at all that we have found, whether we have a teacher that's no longer with us, the answers and everything we need is still around us and within us. And so for myself, my own personal experience, the day my father physically left, you're right, he was no longer there. And I thought to myself, and it's actually in a letter in the beginning of the book that I write, and I say, what a beautiful thing, because I feel I have learned more from you, which could maybe shock some people. I feel I have learned more from my father since he's physically left than when he was here, because I don't have that rock. It's an interesting thing losing your father at a young age, my brother and my sister as well, So whether that is there for us in a physical manner or not, all we have to do is connect to these principles. That is why I feel so passionate to share this book, Myung-sung, The Art of Living Meditation, because I wish in every way possible to share with as many as possible, East, West, older, younger, it doesn't matter, because we're all human and we all connect in that way. And we all need to find this power, this choice, this calm within us so we can handle whatever comes our way.
Oh gosh, you just got to take a big breath after that. It's so beautiful and so powerful. And yet it's so simple if you do the work, right?
Yes.
And so if I know actually right now they're like, Jenelle, how do I get the book? How do they get the book?
Well, it's available for pre-order right now. If you go to my website, JenelleKim.com, or the Penguin Random House website, my publisher is Watkin Penguins Random House. You can find all the links on Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
We'll have them in the show notes.
Yes.
They won't have to go far. We'll keep them here. So that's really very exciting.
Hearing what resonates. So I'm very grateful for this time.
Yes. Well, congratulations. I always wrap up the shows asking, what does inspired living mean to you? And I think we've talked about it the last 30 minutes. But
Yes.
But if we were to sum it up.
If we were to sum it up in this moment in time, what does inspired living means to me? It's exactly this moment. It's that human connection. It's that connective connection would be the word that I use right now. It's my connection to you right now, Keri. It's my connection that I can already feel with anyone who's listening here. It's the moment where no matter what's happening, again, happy, sad, I look around and I see other human beings that have come before us, that will come after us, we stand together. And I think that's a really important thing, the connection to each other, the connection with ourselves, and the connection to the universe around us. Having that faith in that, because with that, no matter what we ever walk through, we can handle.
That is so true. And we need to remember that. We need to remember that connection to yourself, connection to others, connection to source.
Yes.
It can carry you through any storm
anything.
Yep.
Yes.
Jenelle, what a pleasure. Cannot wait to go out and have a girls' night. We need to have some dinner.
I know. I can't wait either, Keri.
I also know we didn't have a chance to talk about this next episode. This is the teaser for the Dr. Jenelle Kim episode number 2. You have a bunch of products and you manufacture your own products, and you have, is it Eastern meets Western products? Tell me a little bit about them, because I know I'm going to be looking at those too.
I have a lab called JBK Wellness Labs. As I told you, the last 20 years of my life, have been focused on the medicine. And so we contract manufacture products, skincare, dietary supplements, topical medicine, muscle and joint, you name it. And we've been doing that. My husband and I own our lab. We started this lab, and it's all based on the herbal medicine that's been passed down in my lineage. So yes, everything is focused on natural. I was one of the very first to talk about natural herbal products. I was told no a lot. And here we are 20 years later. Where
I love that
and
so
natural.
Much. Tell me no, watch
all
me
entrepreneurs
go,
out there. Friend. If I tell you it's true, the number of times I heard no, if I would have listened or gotten upset,
right?
Don't ever let it upset you. I would smile and say, "Okay, thank you," and then I just keep going because I felt that connection. I knew. No,
I know someone had to hear that today. My good friend Holly Dowling says, "Tell me no, watch me go."
Yes,
and I cannot tell you, if I just wrote a book on all the people that were told no their entire life, we wouldn't have half the success stories we have, or if any of them. So, we're going to have to do a follow-up podcast. But we want to, or if someone wants to go check out your products, is it JBK Wellness?
Yes, that's exactly right. Named after.
I know I'm going. Because if you look at her, she's doing something right, my friends.
Well, again, the feeling's pretty mutual, Keri, but appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing. I'm really excited to learn more and get my hands on that book as well. So make sure to go pre-order her book. And if you're listening to this after January, you don't have to pre-order. You can just go and get yours right now. So remember, to go back to the true right connect method.
Yes.
And more than anything, wherever you're at in your life right now, I want you to remember what Dr. Jenelle and I talked about, you have a choice. Each and every day, you have a choice. And I encourage you to choose you, to listen to yourself, to take time, that living meditation, and to practice, right, that kindness and what it is that you want others to be in the world for you as well. So Jenelle, again, thank you so much. Very inspired living episode. Love it. Look forward to connecting more with you. And thank you so much for listening and watching to this Inspired Living episode. If you want more, and I know that you do, go to inspiredliving.tv. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
You've just heard another uplifting episode of Inspired Living with Keri Murphy, the podcast. I hope you loved it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And if you'd like to know more about Inspired Living or to get your hands on many of our awesome free resources, such as the Be Studio Ready Guide, simply visit us at inspiredliving.tv/podcast. Remember, your vision is your destiny, and we're here to help you bring it to life. Join me again next week for another extraordinary episode.